"I need a wife tomorrow," the alpha millionaire said. I told him, "You're not my type. So let me get this straight. You're offering me $3 million to marry you, have your kid, and pretend we're madly in love for the Baltimore society pages." Harry Rames's, built on long lines and dominance of Connecticut old money, custom Tom Ford suits, and the kind of jaw that could cut glass, stared at me across his ridiculous mahogany desk like I'd just asked him to explain quantum physics to a toddler. $3.5 million, he corrected, sliding a leather portfolio across the desk. "And it's not pretending. It's brand management." I snorted. Actually snorted. Right there in the executive suite of Rames's Media Holdings, where you could probably hear a stock price drop. Brand management? Dude, your grandfather literally put a baby clause in his will. That's not brand management. That's blackmail from beyond the grave. Before we begin, I want you to relax because this is for sure a super interesting story. So get comfortable. Let yourself slow down, and enjoy this to the fullest because this story was specifically created for the subscribers of this channel. Also, drop a comment and tell us where you're listening from: Texas, Ohio, Edinburgh, Lake Charles, or anywhere in the world. We truly love hearing from you. And if supernatural romance and werewolf stories have a place in your heart, like the video, subscribe to Gracie Werewolf Storybank, and share it with someone who loves getting lost in powerful stories. Now, settle in. Let the story take you. Chapter 1. The Bombshell. Harry Rames's, 38 years old, CEO-in-waiting of a media empire that owned everything from theme parks to streaming platforms, and, oh yeah, a literal werewolf alpha who thought emotions were a software glitch that needed patching. The man ran billion-dollar negotiations before breakfast and could make grown executives weep with a single glance. He was power personified, wrapped in Italian wool and unreasonable expectations. And me? Juliet Candice. 26. His executive assistant for the past 4 years. The woman who knew his coffee order by heart: black, 2 shots espresso, oat milk foam only on Wednesdays. The woman who managed his impossible schedule, deflected his mother's phone calls, and had personally witnessed him fire 3 VPs without blinking. I knew which board members he respected and which ones he'd rather throw into the Chesapeake Bay. I knew he took calls from his brothers no matter what meeting he was in. I knew he worked until 2 a.m. most nights because sleeping meant dreaming, and dreaming meant feeling things he'd rather avoid. What he didn't know: I'd been hopelessly, stupidly, devastatingly in love with him since month 2. Since the day he'd stayed late to help me fix a presentation disaster that wasn't even his problem. Since he'd looked at me like I was competent instead of disposable. Also, I was a werewolf too. Silver white fur, Colorado mountain lineage, running from a past that wore Armani and called himself my destined mate. But Harry didn't need to know that part yet. "Your solution fell through," I said, flipping through his hastily drafted marriage contract. The pages were warm where his hands had been, and I hated that I noticed. Hated that my wolf noticed. What happened to Vivienne? The Instagram model with the Maryland beach house and the suspiciously perfect teeth. Harry's expression could have frozen the Chesapeake Bay in July. His jaw tightened, that tiny muscle tick that meant he was 3 seconds from losing his temper or firing someone. Usually both. She leaked the arrangement to page 6. Posted screenshots of our contract with crying emojis and a caption about toxic billionaires. "I have 6 months to fulfill the terms of the will or my brothers inherit my stake in the company. 6 months to produce a wife and secure a bloodline, or everything my grandfather built gets divided among people who'll tear it apart for profit." His voice cracked on the last word. Barely. Just enough that I caught it. "So you need a wife who can keep her mouth shut, pop out an air, and disappear into Connecticut obscurity afterward." I looked up, meeting those amber gold eyes that had haunted 4 years of professional boundaries. "Have you considered a mail-order bride service? I hear they have excellent discretion policies. Or maybe Craigslist. Wanted, woman with functioning uterus and non-disclosure agreement. Must tolerate emotionally unavailable billionaire." His eyes flashed, literally flashed that amber gold that meant his wolf was close to the surface. Pack magic crackled between us, sharp and electric, making my skin prickle with awareness. "I'm considering you." The portfolio hit the desk. My heart hit my throat. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees, or maybe that was just the blood draining from my face. "Absolutely not." "Why not?" He said it like he genuinely didn't understand. Like offering your assistant a multimillion-dollar breeding contract was standard corporate practice. Because you're not my type, I shot back, which was the lie of the century. Harry Rames's was every woman's type. He was the type. 6'4" of controlled power, brilliant mind, and shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of a media empire without breaking. Because I actually like my job. Because marrying your boss is the plot of a bad romance novel, not a viable business strategy. You'd be compensated generously. $3.5 million, plus full medical coverage, housing allowance, and a trust fund for the child. After contract completion, you walk away with enough money to do whatever you want for the rest of your life. I don't want your money, Harry. Everyone wants money, Juliet. He said it with such certainty. Such absolute conviction that the world operated on transactions and quarterly earnings reports. That everything, including people, had a price point. And there it was. The fundamental difference between us. The canyon-wide gap that no amount of proximity could bridge. Harry thought the world operated on contracts and calculated risks. I still believed in things like love and fate and pack bonds that meant something beyond paperwork. Here's what's going to happen, I said, standing up. My hands were shaking but my voice stayed level. 4 years of dealing with his intensity had taught me how to fake calm. You're going to find some socialite who's bored enough to play house for a year. Someone who understands that this is business, not romance. I'm going to pretend this conversation never happened. We're going to maintain our professional relationship. And Monday morning, we're going back to normal, where you bark orders and I resist the urge to staple your tie to your desk. I made it 3 steps toward the door. 3 steps toward safety and sanity and maintaining the carefully constructed walls that kept me employed and my heart intact. Then he spoke again. I can smell your wolf, Juliet. I froze. Every muscle locked. My wolf surged forward, recognizing the alpha command in his voice even though he hadn't meant it that way. I've known since the day you interviewed. Cascade Mountain Pack, unless I'm mistaken. You left Colorado 5 years ago and never looked back. Never contacted your birth pack. Never registered with local territories. You've been running solo in Baltimore for 4 years, which means you're either incredibly strong or running from something that terrifies you more than being packless. My chest tightened. The air felt too thin. How long had he known? How many times had I sat across from him, thinking I was safe, while he catalogued every secret my scent betrayed? That's none of your business. It is if you're hiding from something. He stood, and suddenly the room felt smaller. His presence filled the space, alpha dominance pressing against my skin like physical weight. Not threatening. Just there. Undeniable. Rogue wolves don't usually last long in corporate America without a pack for protection. The isolation alone drives most wolves back to their birth packs within months. But you've survived 4 years. That takes either incredible strength or incredible desperation. Are you threatening me? My voice didn't betray the fear twisting in my chest. I'm offering you a solution. He moved closer, not predatory, but purposeful. Each step deliberate. Marry me, and you're under Rames's pack protection. The strongest pack on the eastern seaboard. 300 wolves, territory spanning Connecticut to Maryland, connections that reach into every major city. Whatever you're running from in Colorado can't touch you here. Not legally. Not physically. Not ever. My wolf stirred, the part of me I'd kept locked down tight since fleeing the mountains. The part that recognized an alpha when it saw one. The part that had been lonely for so long it hurt. This is unreal, I murmured. This is practical. You get safety and financial security. I get the company that's been my family's legacy for 3 generations. We both get what we need. And what about what we want? His expression flickered, just for a second. Something vulnerable broke through the executive mask. Pain. Old and deep. The kind that comes from wanting things you've convinced yourself you don't deserve. Want is a luxury neither of us can afford right now. The words hung between us. Honest in a way that made my chest ache. I should have walked out. Should have laughed in his face, updated my resume, and caught the next train to somewhere, anywhere, that wasn't Baltimore. Should have protected what was left of my heart before this man turned it into collateral damage. But here's the thing about werewolves. We're suckers for pack bonds. For belonging. For the promise of safety after years of looking over our shoulders. And Harry Rames's, whether he admitted it or not, had just offered me the one thing I'd been craving since I left Colorado with nothing but the clothes on my back and terror in my veins. A home. Protection. A place to finally stop running. 1 year, I heard myself say. Full contract. Full protection. And when it's over, we walk away clean. No drama, no complications, no lingering feelings. Harry extended his hand. Long fingers, calloused from occasional pack runs, warm despite the air conditioning. Deal. Our palms connected, and I felt the alpha energy surge between us, that electric current that happens when two wolves touch with intent. Pack magic recognized pack magic. His wolf called to mine. Mine answered before I could stop it. The connection lasted 3 seconds. It felt like 3 hours. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't possibly have predicted, was that walking away clean was never going to be an option. That 3 months from now, I'd be pregnant with his child, hiding the truth from both our packs, falling so deeply in love with Harry Ramses that fake marriage would become the cruelest joke the universe ever played. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First came the contract signing. Lawyers and NDAs and carefully negotiated terms about intimacy timelines and public appearances. Then came the wedding that broke the internet. Society pages. Paparazzi. His mother's suspicious questions. And then came the night everything changed. The night I realized my past wasn't just catching up, it was already here, waiting at the gates, ready to tear apart everything we'd carefully built. But that comes later. Right now, in this moment, I was just a woman shaking hands with her boss, agreeing to the most insane arrangement of my life, praying it wouldn't destroy us both. Chapter 2. The Arrangement. 24 hours after agreeing to marry my boss for money, I was sitting in a Maryland bridal boutique, drinking champagne I didn't want, while Harry's lawyer explained the intimacy clauses of our contract. Kill me now. Section 7 addresses physical relations, Daphne Chen said, adjusting her tortoiseshell glasses. She was Harry's Harvard Law School best friend and apparently the only person on earth who could make prenuptial agreements sound like a hostage negotiation. Her voice carried zero inflection, clinical, detached, like she was reading stock reports instead of dissecting my future marital relations. Given the requirement for producing an heir, you'll need to consummate the arrangement within the first 6 months. I choked on my champagne. Actually choked, the expensive kind that probably cost more per bottle than my monthly rent. Bubbles burned up my nose while Daphne watched with the emotional investment of someone observing paint dry. Consummate? Did you just use the word consummate in 2025? Are we time-traveling Puritans? Should I start wearing a bonnet and churning butter? Harry sat across from me in full CEO mode, slate grey suit that probably had its own insurance policy, Windsor not perfect enough to make grown men weep, cufflinks that caught the boutique chandelier light. He didn't even blink. Didn't flinch. Just watched me with those amber gold eyes that saw entirely too much. It's legal terminology. It's Victorian fan fiction. Would you prefer I say you need to engage in marital relations with your husband to fulfill contractual obligations? Daphne asked, voice flatter than the prairie states. Because I can revise the language. I have 14 other ways to phrase reproductive expectations. Some are significantly more explicit. I'd prefer we acknowledge this whole thing is bonkers, I muttered, but I signed the addendum anyway. My signature looked shaky. Desperate. Like it knew something I didn't. Here's what the contract actually said, translated from lawyer speak to human. Marry Harry in a public ceremony within 30 days. Live together in his Connecticut estate, address provided, square footage listed like it mattered, photos attached showing a house bigger than most hotels. Attend society functions as a couple, minimum 12 per year, wardrobes to be coordinated, public displays of affection recommended but not required. Produce 1 biological child within 18 months of marriage date, gender irrelevant, health screenings mandatory, genetic counseling available upon request. After fulfillment of all terms, receive $3.5 million, signing bonus of $200,000 upon marriage, NDA binding for life. Marriage quietly dissolved after appropriate separation period, recommended timeline 2 years post-birth, custody arrangements negotiable, media strategy pre-approved. It read like a business merger. Which, technically, it was. Except mergers don't usually involve your uterus. You're very quiet, Harry observed after Daphne left us alone with 17 documents to initial, 3 addendums to sign, and a medical disclosure form that asked invasive questions about my menstrual cycle. I'm processing the fact that I just signed away my reproductive rights like a dystopian novel protagonist. Also processing that somewhere in this paperwork, there's apparently a clause about what happens if I miscarry. Who thinks of that? Who sits in a lawyer's office and says, "Hey, let's add a section about pregnancy loss compensation"? His mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. The closest Harry got to humor usually involved market disruption or hostile takeovers. You have full autonomy. The contract stipulates mutual consent for all physical. If you say intimacy one more time, I'm walking. I will stand up, leave this boutique, and catch the next bus to literally anywhere that isn't here. Relations, he finished, completely unfazed. I'm not a monster, Juliet. Despite what the business blogs say about my acquisition strategies. You're a billionaire werewolf who just hired a wife like she's seasonal staff. Like I'm a limited-time contractor brought in for a specific project. The monster thing is still up for debate. But here's the truth I wasn't ready to admit, even to myself. I'd spent 4 years watching Harry Rames's command boardrooms like a general commanding troops. Watched him negotiate impossible deals that left Harvard MBAs speechless. Watched him carry the weight of an entire empire on shoulders that were somehow broad enough to handle it without breaking. I'd seen him angry, controlled, surgical anger that dismantled opponents with precision. I'd seen him focused, 18-hour workdays that would hospitalize normal humans. I'd seen him ruthless, firing executives who leaked information, cutting business partnerships that no longer served him, making decisions that cost people their livelihoods because the numbers demanded it. I'd seen him brilliant, solving problems in minutes that took others months, seeing patterns in data that remained invisible to everyone else. I'd never seen him vulnerable. Until now. My grandfather built Rames's media from nothing, Harry said quietly, staring at the unsigned contract in front of him. His fingers traced the edge of the paper, slow, almost reverent. Came to America from Cairo in 1952 with $50 sewn into his jacket lining and a dream bigger than the Atlantic he crossed. No connections. No language skills. Just determination and a work ethic that terrified everyone who met him. He gave my brothers and me everything. Education at schools that normally wouldn't look twice at immigrants' grandchildren, opportunities that took him 40 years to build, a legacy that spans continents. This company is his life's work. His proof that he mattered. That he belonged here. His voice cracked on the last word. Barely perceptible. Just enough that I caught it. And his making you jump through hoops from beyond the grave to keep it. He wanted us to have families. To understand that legacy isn't just about money or market share or quarterly earnings. His jaw tightened, that muscle tick I'd learned to read like a barometer. It's about what you pass down. Who carries your name forward. He wanted us to understand what he understood, that building something means nothing if there's no one to build it for. So the marriage clause was a gift. In his mind. Harry finally looked at me, and the rawness in his expression made my chest ache. In mine, it's a cage I'm trying to make comfortable. I'm trying to honor him while resenting every word of that will. I'm grateful and furious. I love him and I'm angry at him. And I can't even tell him because he's dead, and the last conversation we had was about stock prices. Something in my chest cracked wide open. This wasn't just about inheritance or corporate warfare or billion-dollar stakes. This was about a man trying to honor a grandfather he loved while suffocating under expectations he never asked for. This was about family obligation meeting personal autonomy and losing spectacularly. This was about Harry Rames's brilliant, powerful, seemingly invincible Harry, admitting he felt trapped by the very legacy he'd spent his entire life building. And somehow, I'd become his escape hatch. His solution. His way of checking the boxes while maintaining some illusion of control. For what it's worth, I said softly, I think he'd be proud of you. Even without the wife and baby. Even if you never fulfilled a single clause in that will. Harry's eyes met mine, really met them, not the surface-level glance he gave most people. The alpha wolf facade disappeared completely. What stared back at me was exhaustion carved into bone-deep grooves around his eyes. Loneliness that had probably existed long before his grandfather's death. And something dangerously close to hope, fragile, tentative, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to feel it. Thank you, Juliet. Don't thank me yet. Wait until I'm waddling around your Connecticut mansion complaining about swollen ankles and demanding pickle ice cream at 2 a.m. Wait until I'm hormonal and crying over commercials. Wait until your perfectly organized life gets disrupted by pregnancy cravings and mood swings. He almost smiled. Almost. The corner of his mouth lifted a fraction of an inch. I'll hire a dedicated midnight snack coordinator. Someone on call 24/7. Maybe 2 people, rotating shifts. See? This is why we work. You solve problems with staff. I solve problems with sarcasm and denial. A perfect partnership. A perfectly insane partnership, I corrected, but I signed the final page anyway. My signature looked bolder this time. More certain. Like maybe I'd convinced myself this could work. Like maybe marrying my boss for money while secretly in love with him wasn't the worst decision I'd ever make. It absolutely was. But I wouldn't know that for another 3 months. 3 months of playing house, learning to navigate pack politics, and pretending my heart wasn't fully invested in a man who thought emotions were inefficient. What neither of us knew, what the lawyers didn't put in the contract and the pack elders wouldn't discover for months, was that werewolf biology had other plans. True mate bonds don't care about paperwork. Don't respect NDAs or carefully negotiated timelines. Don't give a damn about compensation packages or exit strategies or walls built around wounded hearts. When 2 wolves are destined, when their souls recognize each other on some fundamental, cellular level, proximity doesn't just breed familiarity. It breeds inevitability. And Harry and I were about to become the walking, breathing definition of inevitable. The wedding was scheduled for 2 weeks later, a small ceremony at Harry's Connecticut estate, followed by a reception for Baltimore's elite that would make the society pages and satisfy the Will's public marriage requirement. 80 guests. Professional photographers. A caterer who'd served 3 presidents. Flowers imported from God knows where. Everything perfect, calculated, designed for maximum social impact. I had 14 days to prepare for fake matrimony to a man I was already half in love with. 14 days before everything got exponentially more complicated. 13 days before I'd discover the real reason Harry's previous engagement fell through, and it wasn't just Vivienne's Instagram betrayal. 12 days before someone from my past showed up at the Ramses' estate gates with information that would blow our arrangement apart. Information about Colorado. About Cascade Mountain pack law. About the alpha who'd been hunting me for 5 years and finally found my trail. But first, I had to survive dress shopping with Harry's mother. Celeste Ramses, former pack Luna, current society matriarch, and the kind of woman who could smell a lie from 3 counties away. Which, it turned out, was more terrifying than any alpha showdown I'd ever witnessed. Because Celeste didn't fight with claws and dominance. She fought with questions I couldn't answer and observations I couldn't deny. And she was about to figure out that her son's whirlwind romance was about as real as a $3 bill. Chapter 3. The Wedding Circus. You're not wearing white. Celeste Ramses, Harry's mother, 63 years old, former pack Luna, and the kind of woman who could make royalty feel underdressed, stood in the doorway of the bridal suite with the facial expression of someone who just discovered her son was marrying a raccoon. "Hello to you too, Mrs. Ramses," I said brightly, fighting the urge to adjust the champagne silk slip dress that suddenly felt too thin, too exposed. "Love what you've done with the judgment today. Very on brand." Her wolf eyes, same amber gold as Harry's, but sharper, more calculating, flashed dangerously. Pack magic rippled off her in waves. 30 years as Connecticut Luna meant she could read pack hierarchies like some people read grocery lists. "My son is marrying a woman we've known for mere weeks. You'll forgive me for having questions." Actually, Harry and I had cooked up a cover story 3 days ago over takeout Chinese and his lawyer's annotated timeline. Whirlwind romance, secret dating for 6 months, finally couldn't hide our feelings anymore. Very rom-com. Very digestible for the society pages. We'd even manufactured a fake how we met story that involved a spilled coffee and Harry's supposedly charming apology. Daphne had called it adequately convincing. Except Celeste Ramses was a Luna who'd run the Connecticut pack for 3 decades. She'd navigated pack coups, territorial disputes, and her own husband's death without losing an inch of ground. She could smell a lie from 3 towns away. Probably could smell what you'd lied about last week. "The dress is champagne, not white," I said, gesturing to the silk number hanging nearby. Simple, elegant, the kind of dress that whispered money instead of screaming it. Definitely not the meringue explosion she was probably expecting. Not the princess fantasy most brides chose. "I'm 26 and marrying my boss." White felt optimistic. To my surprise, she laughed. Actually laughed, a sound like wind chimes made of steel. At least you're honest about that much. She moved into the room, closing the door behind her with deliberate care. The lock clicked. Suddenly, we weren't future in-laws doing the society dance, playing nice for the wedding photographers downstairs. We were two she-wolves in a 12-by-12 room, assessing each other the way wolves do: scent, posture, the subtle tells that reveal whether someone's prey or predator. "Your Cascade Mountain pack," she said. Not a question. A statement delivered with the certainty of someone who'd spent decades cataloging bloodlines. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. Through the Connecticut bedrock. Probably made it halfway to Maryland before stopping. How did you? Your scent. The way you move, careful, always checking exits, never fully relaxed even in safe spaces. My sister mated into Cascade back in the 80s before the territory wars. Her expression softened slightly, but her eyes stayed sharp. You left under bad circumstances. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. My mouth moved before my brain approved the words. My alpha tried to force a mating bond. I refused. Things got messy. Messy. What a sanitized word for what actually happened. For claws raking across ribs, for teeth at my throat, for 3-pack members holding me down while Garrett whispered that I'd learn to love him eventually. For the 200-mile run through Colorado wilderness that left my paws bloody and my wolf half-feral with terror. And now you're here, marrying my son in what I'm assuming is some kind of arrangement related to his grandfather's ridiculous will. I could have lied. Should have lied. Should have smiled and played the blushing bride, kept up the facade that Harry and I had practiced in front of mirrors. But something about Celeste demanded truth the way fire demands oxygen. Harry needs a wife and heir. I need pack protection and a fresh start. We're both getting what we need. And what about what you deserve? The question hit like a slap. Like she'd reached across the room and physically struck me. Excuse me. My son is brilliant, powerful, and so emotionally constipated he makes statues look expressive, Celeste said bluntly, perching on the edge of the vanity like she planned to stay a while. He'll give you financial security. More money than you could spend in 3 lifetimes. He'll give you social status. The Ramses' name opens doors that stay locked for everyone else. He'll be loyal, responsible, probably even affectionate in his own stunted way. He'll remember birthdays. He'll arrange thoughtful gifts. He'll never cheat, never lie about where he is or who he's with. She paused, amber eyes boring into mine. But he won't give you his heart, Juliet. Harry locked that away years ago after his divorce, after his father's death, after a lifetime of learning that emotions are weaknesses that people exploit. I don't know if he even remembers where he put the key. Tears stung my eyes, ridiculous, unwanted tears for a fake marriage that shouldn't hurt this much. For a business arrangement that had somehow become the most important thing in my life. I'm not expecting love, Mrs. Ramses. I'm expecting a partnership. That's what I told myself when I mated Harry's father. Her voice went distant, gaze unfocusing like she was seeing through 30 years of marriage to the girl she'd been. Alphas make terrible husbands, dear. They give you everything except the one thing you actually want, themselves. They'll build you houses, buy you jewelry, protect you from every external threat. But they won't let you see them bleed. Won't admit when they're scared. Won't let you close enough to matter. Before I could respond, before I could process the warning wrapped in her words, a knock interrupted us. Juliet? It's Daphne. Are you decent? Celeste squeezed my hand once, a gesture that felt more like pack than politeness, like an elder wolf acknowledging a younger one. Then she slipped out through the adjoining door, disappearing as silently as she'd arrived. Daphne entered looking frazzled, hair escaping its normally perfect bun, lipstick slightly smudged, the kind of dishevelment that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. We have a problem. Just one? I was expecting at least 5 by now. Raven Castellano is here. My blood went cold. Who? Harry's ex. The one before Vivienne. Daphne pulled out her phone, showing me an Instagram livestream that already had 15,000 viewers. Apparently she and Harry had some kind of understanding 3 years ago, and she's claiming he broke a verbal agreement. She's making a scene downstairs, threatening to go to the media unless Harry speaks with her privately. Define making a scene. Currently in the foyer, crying, demanding to see the bride, and live streaming the entire thing to 40,000 Instagram followers. Security's trying to contain it without creating more footage for her to monetize. Of course she was. I found Raven in the garden, because of course this woman needed dramatic ambience for her meltdown. The Connecticut estate gardens were ridiculous even by billionaire standards. Manicured hedges, imported roses, a fountain that probably cost more than most people's houses. Raven stood beside the fountain like she was posing for a magazine shoot, which she probably was given the phone propped on the stone ledge. She was stunning in that way that makes regular humans weep. Tall, willowy, cheekbones that could slice bread, and auburn hair that probably had its own insurance policy. Valentino dress. Louboutin heels. Diamonds at her throat that caught sunlight like captured stars. Also, definitely not a werewolf. Human, through and through. I could tell from the way she moved, the absence of pack magic, the carefully constructed perfection that didn't account for supernatural senses. "You must be the assistant," she said when she spotted me, venom dripping from every syllable. "Executive assistant," I corrected cheerfully, moving close enough that her phone couldn't capture me. "And you must be the Instagram influencer who thinks public tantrums are a personality trait." Her eyes narrowed, green, probably contacts, definitely lined with enough makeup to stock a Sephora. Harry and I had an agreement. I was supposed to be his wife. Weird. My contract says otherwise. Also weird? I don't remember seeing your name on the marriage license I signed this morning. You don't understand what you're getting into. She stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of expensive perfume mixed with desperation, Chanel and panic sweat. Harry doesn't do relationships. He does transactions. You're just another line item in his quarterly budget, sweetheart. Another acquisition to check off his list. And you're just another woman who thought money could buy happiness, I shot back. How's that working out? Because from where I'm standing, you're crashing someone else's wedding while live-streaming your breakdown. Not exactly the flex you think it is. He'll break your heart. She said it with absolute certainty, with the conviction of someone who knew from experience. Good thing I didn't bring it to the transaction. But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. My heart was already fully, stupidly invested in a man who'd hired me like a consultant. Who'd offered me protection and money and everything except the one thing I actually wanted. Him. The real him. The version that existed underneath the CEO mask and alpha dominance. Raven must have seen something in my expression because her face shifted from angry to pitying. The change was instant. Complete. You actually love him. I don't. Oh honey, you do. I can see it all over you. She laughed, but there was no joy in it. Just bitterness that tasted like ashes. That's even worse. At least I knew what I was getting into. I signed up for the money, the status, the lifestyle. You're walking into this thinking you can change him, fix him, make him feel something real. Thinking your love is special enough to break through. I'm not trying to change anyone. Then you're smarter than I was. She turned to leave, then paused, looking back over her shoulder. The Instagram livestream was still running. Still broadcasting. For what it's worth. Harry needs someone like you. Someone who doesn't take his garbage. Someone who challenges him. I just hope you survive what's coming. What's coming? But she was already gone, heels clicking across the flagstone path, leaving me alone with a sinking feeling that this arrangement was far more complicated than a simple contract. That I'd signed up for something I didn't fully understand. 2 hours later, I stood at the end of an aisle lined with Connecticut's wealthiest werewolves, wearing champagne silk and holding a bouquet I could barely feel through my numb fingers. 80 pairs of eyes watched me. 80 wolves assessing whether I was worthy of their alpha. Whether I belonged in their pack. Whether this human-looking girl from Colorado had any business marrying Harry Ramses. Harry waited at the altar in a midnight blue suit that probably required 3 fittings. He looked every inch the alpha billionaire who'd just acquired his most important asset. Shoulders back. Expression neutral. CEO face firmly in place. Me. The ceremony was quick, elegant, expensive, emotionless. We said vows written by lawyers, approved by Daphne, edited for maximum legal protection and minimum genuine sentiment. Exchanged rings that felt heavier than they should, platinum bands that would leave tan lines, physical proof of our arrangement. Kissed for exactly 3 seconds while cameras flashed and pack members howled their approval, the traditional werewolf blessing that sounded more threatening than celebratory. And then it was done. I was Mrs. Juliet Ramses. Wife to a werewolf alpha who'd hired me like staff. Mother-to-be to an heir who existed only on paper and contract clauses. Partner to a man who'd never promised me anything except compensation and pack protection. You okay? Harry murmured as we walked back down the aisle, his hand solid and warm against the small of my back. His touch sent electricity up my spine, pack magic recognizing pack magic, or maybe just my traitorous body responding to proximity. Peachy. This is exactly how I imagined my wedding day, contractual, calculated, and catered by someone who charges per minute. His mouth twitched. The catering is exceptional, at least. The salmon is perfectly seared. That's your bar? Good canapés. I'm a simple man, Juliet. You're a billionaire werewolf CEO who just married his assistant in front of Connecticut's entire supernatural elite. You're literally the opposite of simple. But he was smiling, actually smiling, and for just a moment, the weight of everything lifted. Maybe this could work. Maybe we could be partners, friends even. Maybe the business arrangement could evolve into something bearable, something that didn't feel like slow-motion heartbreak. Maybe. Mr. Rames's. A security guard rushed over, face pale, breaking through the photographer's setup with enough urgency that several guests turned to stare. Sir, we have a situation at the gates. Someone's demanding entry, claiming their pack family. Harry's entire demeanor shifted. The smile vanished. CEO face disappeared. What replaced it was pure alpha, dominant, dangerous, ready for violence. Name. Garrett Thornwell. Says he's from Cascade Mountain Pack and is here for his runaway Luna. My knees nearly gave out. The bouquet slipped from my fingers, landing on the imported carpet with a soft thud that felt deafening. Garrett. My old alpha. The one I'd fled Colorado to escape. The one who tried to force a bond, who'd left scars on my ribs that still ached when the weather changed. The one I'd spent 5 years running from, looking over my shoulder, changing my name, hiding my scent. He'd found me. And he was here, on my wedding day, ready to drag me back to the mountains, or worse. Harry's hand tightened on my waist, his wolf surging to the surface so fast the temperature dropped. Pack magic flooded the reception hall, thick, oppressive, the kind of dominance that made lesser wolves submit automatically. When he spoke, his voice carried enough alpha command to make the Earth's rotation pause. Tell Mr. Thornwell that Juliet is under Rames's pack protection now. She's my wife, my mate, my responsibility. He's not welcome on this territory. If he doesn't leave voluntarily in the next 60 seconds, I'll personally escort him off, and it won't be gentle. The guard fled. Guests murmured, excited whispers about territorial disputes, pack challenges, the kind of drama that would fuel Connecticut gossip for months. My new mother-in-law watched with sharp, knowing eyes, her expression saying I told you this was complicated. And Harry, my fake husband, my business arrangement, my carefully structured partnership, pulled me closer against his side, his wolf rising to protect what was suddenly, undeniably his. Not because of the contract. Not because of the arrangement. Because I was pack now. Because he'd claimed me in front of 80 witnesses. Because alpha instinct didn't care about paperwork when someone threatened what belonged to them. We need to talk, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the rising chatter. After the reception. Right now, we smile, dance, and show that pathetic excuse for an alpha that you're exactly where you belong. Where's that? His eyes met mine, amber gold blazing with something that looked dangerously like possession. Like territoriality that went beyond business arrangements. Like maybe he'd forgotten this was supposed to be fake. With me. The reception lasted another 3 hours. We danced, his hand on my waist, my hand on his shoulder, moving through traditional waltzes that Connecticut society demanded. We smiled for photographs that would end up in the Hartford Courant and Greenwich Times. We fed each other cake while society photographers captured every moment, every angle, building the narrative of our whirlwind romance. And the entire time, I felt Garrett's presence at the gates like a knife against my spine. Like a predator circling just outside the fence line, waiting for an opening. Security had escorted him off the property, but he was still out there. Still watching. Still waiting. My past had finally caught up. And my fake husband was about to learn the real reason I'd agreed to this arrangement. The secret I'd been carrying since the day I fled Colorado with nothing but the clothes on my back and terror in my veins. The secret about Cascade Mountain Pack law. About forced bonds and bloodline claims. About why Garrett would never, ever stop hunting me. The secret that would change everything we'd carefully built. But that conversation would have to wait until after we cut the cake, after we said goodbye to the guests, after we retreated to Harry's Connecticut mansion to play newlyweds for an audience of 0. After I figured out how to tell my new husband that marrying me hadn't just given him an heir and fulfilled his grandfather's will. It had started a war. Beat 4, confessions and chemistry. So, Harry said, closing the door to our bedroom suite. Are we going to talk about the stalker alpha at my gates, or should I just start making assumptions? It was midnight. The guests had finally left, Connecticut's elite filing out in their designer suits and borrowed jewels, still whispering about the territorial drama. The staff had cleaned up every champagne flute, every discarded napkin, every trace of the wedding that had just legally bound me to a man who thought emotions were quarterly projections. And now I was alone with my new husband in a Connecticut mansion that felt more like a museum than a home, all dark wood polished to a mirror shine, leather furniture that probably predated the Civil War, and inherited wealth that smelled faintly of cedar and old money and dynasties built on ruthless decisions. I kicked off my heels, blessed, holy relief after 6 hours of standing, smiling, pretending my past wasn't circling the property like a shark. How much did your mother tell you? That your Cascade Mountain pack. That you left under bad circumstances. That Garrett Thornwell claimed you were his intended mate. Harry poured 2 glasses of bourbon, expensive, smooth, probably older than me and definitely worth more. The amber liquid caught the firelight. She left out the interesting details. The parts that explain why an alpha traveled 1,500 miles to crash my wedding. There's a reason I didn't include my pack history in the contract. I'm aware. You have 30 seconds before I call Daphne and add a full disclosure amendment. He wasn't joking. His phone was already in his hand, thumb hovering over her contact. You wouldn't. Try me. God, he was infuriating. Also, kind of devastating when he did the commanding CEO thing, all controlled power and absolute certainty. Also, I really needed to stop noticing that now that we were legally married and I was supposed to be maintaining professional boundaries that had already disintegrated the moment his mouth touched mine at the altar. Garrett and I grew up together. I started, accepting the bourbon. The glass was heavy, crystal, probably inherited from some Rames's ancestor who'd made their fortune in shipping or railroads or whatever rich people did in the 1800s. Same pack, same schools, same social circles. Our parents were friends. We learned to shift together. That awkward phase where you're half kid, half wolf, falling over your own paws. Everyone assumed we'd mate eventually. It's what our families wanted, what pack tradition demanded, what the elders predicted based on bloodline compatibility. You didn't want him. I didn't love him. I took a sip, letting the burn ground me. Anchor me to this moment instead of the memories clawing their way up my throat. Difference being, in Cascade Mountain Pack, what you want doesn't matter. What matters is bloodlines, alliances, pack hierarchy, who your great-grandmother mated, what territory your family controls, how many wolves answer to your father. Garrett's family controlled half the Colorado territory, the profitable half, the part with the ski resorts and vacation homes and rich humans who paid premium prices for authentic mountain experiences. My family needed their protection. We were smaller, weaker, always one bad winter away from losing everything. Harry's expression darkened. That muscle in his jaw ticked, the tell that meant he was 3 seconds from either losing his temper or making a business decision that would ruin someone's life. And you said no. I said hell no. In those exact words. In front of 300 werewolves during the autumn gathering when the entire pack comes together to celebrate the harvest. I smiled, but there was no humor in it. Garrett stood up during the bonding announcements, this formal ceremony where intended mates declare their intentions publicly, and said my name like it was already decided. Like I'd agreed. Like my consent was irrelevant. And I stood up and said, hell no. I'm not your mate. I'm not your property. Find someone else to chain to your legacy. Good for you. Not good for me. Turns out, publicly humiliating an alpha heir in front of the entire pack has consequences. My hand drifted to my ribs, where a thin scar still ran beneath my wedding dress, 3 inches of raised tissue that ached when storms rolled in. Harry saw the gesture. His wolf surfaced so fast the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Pack magic flooded the space, thick, oppressive, the kind of dominance that made furniture creak. He hurt you. He tried to mark me. Force the mate bond whether I consented or not. My voice stayed firm through sheer force of will. 3 weeks after I refused him, he ambushed me in the pack house, caught me alone after council meeting, blocked the exits, had 3 of his friends standing guard to make sure no one interrupted. He said I was being childish, that I'd learn to love him eventually, that this was for my own good, for my family's protection, for the pack's stability. The glass in Harry's hand cracked. Actual fissures spiderwebbing across the crystal. He set it down carefully, but his hands were shaking. What did you do? I fought back. Shifted mid-attack, caught him off guard because he thought I'd submit like a good little she-wolf. Bit through his shoulder, clawed across his face, and ran. That night. Didn't pack a bag, didn't say goodbye to my family, didn't stop running until I hit the Maryland border and collapsed in a gas station parking lot at 4 a.m., covered in blood and too exhausted to shift back. Juliet. I called the one person I trusted, Piper, my college roommate who'd moved to Baltimore after graduation. She picked me up, let me crash on her couch for 6 months, helped me get fake IDs and a new identity, helped me dye my hair, change my scent markers, learn to suppress my wolf in public so Cascade Pack couldn't track me. The bourbon was gone. I didn't remember drinking it. Garrett's been searching for 5 years, hiring private investigators, monitoring social media, checking every pack registry on the East Coast. Until now. Silence. Heavy, weighted silence that felt like the moment before a storm breaks and rips trees out by their roots. The contract is void, Harry said finally. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. Through the foundation. Through whatever Connecticut bedrock this mansion was built on. What? You married me under false pretenses. Didn't disclose a pre-existing pack conflict that could endanger Rames's territory. That's grounds for immediate annulment under pack law and contract clause 17, subsection B. You said you'd protect me. I will. He moved closer, and suddenly the space between us felt electric. Charged. Like the air before lightning strikes. But not because of some contract. Not because of paperwork or legal obligations or grandfather clauses. Because you're my wife now, Juliet. Because you're under my pack protection, genuinely, not just legally. Because you're pack, and I don't let anyone threaten my pack. And because any alpha who forces a bond against a she-wolf's will deserves to be torn apart slowly in front of his entire pack as a warning to anyone else who thinks consent is optional. You're not ending the arrangement. Are you insane? I'm doubling your security detail. Tripling it. You're getting a dedicated protection team, upgraded security systems, tracking software in your phone, and explicit instructions to Sloane that if Garrett Thornwell comes within 50 miles of you, she has authorization to use lethal force. Relief hit so hard I nearly sobbed. Thank you. Don't thank me. This is basic decency. The fact that you expected less, that you thought I'd throw you out for failing to disclose trauma, tells me everything I need to know about your previous pack. He sat beside me, close enough that I could feel his body heat. Close enough that our knees touched. I need to know everything, Juliet. Every detail about Garrett, his pack connections, his resources, his family's territory, his allies, his weaknesses. If he's going to be a problem, I need to prepare. He's not going to give up. In his mind, I'm still his intended mate. Pack law says. Pack law says a bonded wolf belongs to her chosen mate. You chose me when you signed that contract. When you stood at that altar. The rest is irrelevant. We're not actually bonded, Harry. This is still fake. Business arrangement. 12 months and we walk away. His eyes locked on mine, amber gold blazing in the firelight. Wolf so close to the surface I could feel its presence like physical pressure. Is it? The question hung between us like a dare. Like a challenge. Like an invitation to admit what we'd both been avoiding since the moment our hands touched and pack magic recognized pack magic. Yes, I whispered, but the word tasted like a lie. Like ash. Like something fundamentally untrue. Because sitting here, in the firelight, with bourbon warming my blood and Harry's wolf calling to mine in ways that had nothing to do with contracts or compensation or carefully structured exit strategies, this felt dangerously, terrifyingly real. We spent that first night in separate bedrooms, him in the master suite with its king bed and adjoining office, me in the guest room down the hall with its impersonal furniture and hotel-quality linens. Professional. Appropriate. Exactly what the contract stipulated. Except I couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop thinking about that kiss. Couldn't ignore my wolf's insistence that Harry Rames's, my fake husband, my business arrangement, my carefully structured partnership, was somehow, impossibly, my true mate. The thing pack elders don't tell you about true mate bonds? They're rare. Like, 1 in 10,000 rare. Most wolves mate for compatibility, chemistry, pack politics. For convenience or family alliances or because it makes strategic sense. But true mates? That's destiny. Soul-level connection written into your DNA before you're born. The kind of bond that transcends logic and laughs at contracts and makes fools of anyone who thinks they can control it. And if Harry was my true mate, if this attraction wasn't just proximity and convenience but something fundamental, then everything we'd carefully constructed was about to come crashing down. Because true mate bonds can't be faked. They can't be contained. And they sure as hell can't be dissolved after 12 months with a polite handshake and a severance package. Chapter 5. The Confrontation. Garrett Thornwell looked exactly how I remembered, 6'2" of mountain-raised muscle, sandy blonde hair that probably required its own styling team, and the kind of smile that would seem charming right up until he was forcing you into pack subjugation. He also looked furious. "You can't keep her from me," Garrett said, standing in Harry's downtown Baltimore office like he owned the place. Like the 40-story glass tower with the Rames's Media Holdings logo was just another territory to claim. Juliet is Cascade Mountain Pack. That supersedes your territory claim. I watched via security feed from Harry's private conference room, where his head of security, a terrifying she-wolf named Sloane, had stashed me after Garrett showed up demanding a meeting. The screen was high definition, close enough that I could see the vein pulsing in Garrett's temple. Close enough that I could see he'd lost weight, that his eyes had dark circles underneath, that 5 years of searching for me had cost him something. "Good. She's also my wife," Harry said, voice arctic. The temperature in his office probably dropped 10 degrees just from his tone. "Which supersedes your pack claim. Basic werewolf law, Thornwell. A bonded mate belongs to her chosen pack. You think I believe that marriage is real?" Garrett laughed, sharp, bitter, the sound of someone who'd spent 5 years being lied to and had learned to recognize deception. "I've done my research, Rames's. Whirlwind romance. Secret relationship? You needed a wife for your grandfather's will, and my runaway Luna needed pack protection. This is a business arrangement, nothing more. I've seen the prenup. I know about the contract." My stomach dropped. How did he get the prenup? Who leaked it? Even if it were, which I'm not confirming, that doesn't give you rights to my wife. She was mine first. Garrett said it with absolute conviction, with the certainty of someone who'd been taught ownership was love. "She was never yours. She rejected your bond." Garrett's wolf flashed in his eyes, that amber brown that used to seem warm and now just looked predatory. "Because she was confused. Young. 21 and thinking she knew better than pack tradition, better than elders who'd lived 3 times her lifespan. She didn't understand pack responsibility. She understood perfectly. You tried to force her." Harry leaned forward, and even through the camera feed, I could feel his alpha dominance rolling off him in waves. Pack magic so thick it made the air shimmer. "Let me be extremely clear, Juliet is under Rames's pack protection. She will remain under Rames's pack protection. And if you set foot on my territory again without invitation, I'll consider it an act of war." "War?" Garrett's smile turned vicious. Dangerous. The expression of an alpha who'd been pushed too far and didn't care about consequences anymore. "You want to go to war over she-wolf who's playing you for money? Because that's what this is, Rames's. Juliet's always been a survivor. Always been good at finding powerful men to hide behind. She'll use you up, take your cash, and disappear the second that contract expires. Just like she disappeared from Colorado." My hands clenched. Nails cutting into palms hard enough to draw blood. Sloane, standing beside me, growled low in her throat, a sound that would have made most wolves back down. "He's baiting him," she muttered. "Trying to make Harry doubt you. Classic alpha manipulation, plant seeds of distrust, make him question everything." But Harry didn't even flinch. Didn't hesitate. "My relationship with my wife is none of your concern. What should concern you is the legal restraining order being filed as we speak. You have 72 hours to leave Connecticut and Maryland. If you're spotted within 50 miles of Juliet after that deadline, I'll have you arrested for stalking and harassment. And before you say I can't, I absolutely can. I have documentation of your previous assault. Medical records from the night she ran. Witness statements she filed with PAC authorities. You're one police report away from a criminal investigation, Thornwell. Garrett's face went red. You're bluffing. Am I? You want to test that theory? Because I have 3 law firms on retainer, the kind that specialize in making problems disappear. How many do you have? Silence. Garrett's jaw worked like he was chewing on words too bitter to spit out. This isn't over, he finally said. It is. The only question is whether you leave with your dignity intact or whether I have security escort you out in front of every employee on this floor. 40-story building, Thornwell. Lot of witnesses. Lot of phones with cameras. Your choice how this ends up on social media. Harry pressed a button on his desk phone. 2 massive security guards appeared in the doorway, both werewolves, both radiating enough dominance to make lesser alphas submit. One of them was easily 6'5", built like he bench-pressed trucks for fun. Garrett looked between them, calculation flickering across his face. Finally, he straightened his jacket, Armani, probably custom, definitely expensive enough that losing it in a fight would hurt. She'll never truly be yours, he said quietly. Juliet's wolf knows where she belongs. Eventually, she'll come home. Maybe not today, maybe not this year. But eventually. Because PAC is PAC, Rames's. And you can't replace bloodline with money. She is home. And the way Harry said it, absolute, certain, like he was stating a fundamental law of physics, made my heart stutter. Made my wolf whimper with something that felt dangerously like hope. Garrett left. The security guards followed. And 30 seconds later, Sloane's phone buzzed. Boss says you can come down now. I found Harry standing at his office windows, overlooking the Baltimore harbor where cargo ships moved like toys and the city sprawled toward the horizon. His shoulders were tight, jaw clenched, alpha energy still crackling around him like static electricity before a lightning strike. You didn't have to do that, I said softly. Yes, I did. The restraining order, the threats, the alpha posturing, that's going to create problems with Cascade Mountain PAC. They could see it as territorial aggression. File complaints with the Werewolf Council. Make your life complicated. Let them. He turned, and his eyes were pure wolf, amber gold blazing, pupil dilated, the human mask completely gone. You're mine to protect, Juliet. Contract or no contract, fake marriage or real one, you're PAC now. And I don't let anyone threaten my PAC. I'm not actually PAC, Harry. I'm an employee with benefits. A contractual obligation that expires in 9 months. You're my wife. On paper. In every way that matters. He crossed the space between us in 3 strides, fast enough that my wolf wanted to run, to submit, to acknowledge the alpha bearing down on me. Do you understand what I just did? I declared PAC protection over you in front of a rival alpha. Threatened war. Pulled legal weapons that could escalate into full territorial conflict. That's not a business decision, Juliet. That's a blood oath. That's me telling every wolf in a 5-state radius that you're mine and anyone who touches you dies. My breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying the contract was convenient fiction. But this. He gestured between us, at the space that felt electric, charged, impossible to ignore. This stopped being fake the moment you told me about Colorado. The moment I realized someone hurt you and I wanted to tear them apart for it. The moment I kissed you and felt my wolf recognize yours like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. Harry. I know the timing's terrible. I know we agreed to keep this professional. I know we had timelines and exit strategies and carefully negotiated terms about maintaining emotional distance. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration rolling off him in waves. But I can't pretend anymore that you're just a convenient solution. You're not. You're everything I didn't know I needed. Everything I convinced myself I didn't deserve. What? His eyes met mine, raw, vulnerable, terrifying in their honesty. Everything I didn't know I needed. You make me laugh. You call me on my garbage. You challenge my decisions. You make me want to be better than the emotionally stunted alpha who thinks love is a quarterly projection. And I'm falling in love with you, Juliet. Have been since probably month 3 of your employment when you told me my tie looked like a tax document and I should burn it. The words hit like a physical blow. Like pack magic striking directly at my chest. This is a bad idea, I whispered. I know. We have a contract. Timeline. Exit strategy. We're supposed to walk away clean in 9 months. I know. I'm falling in love with you, and it's going to destroy me when this ends. I know. His hand cupped my face, gentle, reverent, like I was something precious instead of contracted labor. So let's not let it end. What? Marry me. Actually marry me. Not for the will, not for the company, not for pack protection. Marry me because you want to. Because I'm falling in love with you too, and I'm tired of pretending I'm not. Tired of structuring everything, controlling everything, keeping everything at arm's length because I'm afraid of getting hurt. You're worth the risk, Juliet. You're worth everything. Tears blurred my vision. You said you couldn't love. That you locked your heart away after your divorce. You picked the lock. His thumb brushed away a tear, gentle, careful, the alpha dominance replaced by something softer. Turns out, I just needed the right person to remind me how. To show me that love doesn't have to be scheduled or optimized or controlled. That sometimes the best things are messy and complicated and absolutely terrifying. I should have been smart. Should have remembered that Harry Ramses was a billionaire alpha who thought emotions were quarterly projections. Should have protected my heart while I still could, before this arrangement destroyed me completely. Instead, I kissed him. This time, there were no contracts between us. No lawyers drafting terms, no timelines restricting intimacy, no carefully structured exit strategies promising clean breaks. Just 2 wolves, finally admitting what our hearts had known from the beginning. This was real. This was inevitable. This was destiny wearing a business suit and pretending to be practical. We spent the next 3 months playing house for real. Harry taught me how to navigate pack politics, which elders to respect, which alliances to cultivate, which territorial disputes to avoid. I taught him how to laugh at himself, how to take breaks without scheduling them, how to be spontaneous. We attended galas. Hosted pack dinners where Connecticut's elite assessed whether I belonged. And somewhere between the Connecticut estate and the Baltimore penthouse, between board meetings and midnight conversations, we built something that looked suspiciously like actual love. And then I got pregnant. Not planned. Not scheduled in the contract timeline that said 6 months minimum before attempting conception. But apparently, werewolf biology doesn't care about carefully negotiated terms when true mates are involved. I found out on a Thursday morning, staring at 3 positive pregnancy tests in the master bathroom while Harry was in a board meeting downtown. 3 pink lines that changed everything. Panic hit first, sharp, immediate, stealing my breath. Then joy, unexpected, overwhelming, making my hand shake. Then more panic, because this wasn't supposed to happen yet, because we had timelines, because getting pregnant 3 months into a fake marriage complicated everything we'd carefully built. Because here's what I hadn't told Harry yet, Cascade Mountain Pack had a law. An old, brutal law that most modern packs had abolished decades ago. If a she-wolf from their pack bore children with an outside alpha without formal pack approval, those children belonged to Cascade Mountain, by force if necessary. And Garrett knew that law. Had probably been counting on it. Had probably let me go, let me marry Harry, knowing that eventually I'd get pregnant and give him exactly the leverage he needed. I'd escaped 5 years ago. But my baby? My baby would give Garrett exactly what he needed to drag me back to Colorado. Unless I told Harry the truth. All of it. Including the part I'd left out about why Cascade Mountain Pack would never, ever let me go. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Congratulations on the pregnancy. Does your husband know about Cascade Law? Or should I tell him myself? You have 48 hours to come home voluntarily, or I'm filing a formal pack claim with the Werewolf Council. Your choice, Luna. Garrett. Somehow, he knew. Maybe pack informants embedded in Connecticut territory. Maybe he'd been watching, tracking, monitoring my every move. Maybe he could just smell the shift in my hormones from 50 miles away. Alphas could do that sometimes, sense changes in wolves they'd once claimed. Didn't matter how. What mattered was this: I had 2 days to figure out how to protect my baby from pack law that predated the Civil War. 2 days to tell Harry the full truth about why I'd really run from Colorado. And 2 days before Garrett Thornwell brought the full weight of the Werewolf Council down on the Ramses pack, unless I gave him exactly what he wanted. Me. Chapter 6. The Secret and the Choice. You're pregnant. Harry stood in the bedroom doorway, still wearing his suit from the board meeting, tie loosened, top button undone, but otherwise perfectly composed. He held the pregnancy test I'd forgotten to hide in my panic, the plastic stick looking absurdly small in his large hand. His expression was unreadable. CEO face. Alpha mask. All the walls I'd spent 3 months breaking down suddenly back in place like they'd never crumbled. I was going to tell you, I said quickly, words tumbling over each other. I just found out this morning. Took 3 tests to be sure. I was waiting for the right moment. The right moment to tell me you're carrying my child. Yes. He looked at the test again, examined it like it was a contract requiring analysis. Then at me. You don't seem happy. I am happy. I'm terrified, but I'm happy. Terrified of what? Me? Motherhood? The fact that this wasn't in the timeline. His voice stayed level, controlled, but I heard the edge underneath. The hurt he was trying to hide. Terrified of Garrett. The words burst out before I could stop them, before I could package them in something gentler. Terrified of Cascade Mountain pack law. Terrified that I just gave Garrett exactly what he needs to take everything from us. Harry went very, very still. The kind of stillness that predators have right before they strike. Explain. So I did. All of it. The law I'd conveniently omitted from my confession 3 months ago when I told him about running from Colorado. The ancient pack regulation that said children born to Cascade she-wolves belonged to the pack unless formal approval was granted by the Alpha and Council elders. The fact that I'd fled before getting that approval, and Garrett would use that technicality to claim legal right to our baby. The reality that Cascade Mountain Pack considered any child born to their bloodline as pack property, regardless of who the father was, regardless of where the child was born. He texted me this morning, I finished, showing Harry the message with shaking hands. He's filing a claim with the Werewolf Council. We have 48 hours. The Werewolf Council can't override pack bonding laws. Harry said it with certainty, but I heard the question underneath. They can if the bond was formed under false pretenses. If they determine our marriage was purely contractual, which they will, because we literally signed a contract that Garrett somehow got his hands on, then pack law supersedes bonding rights. Ancient law, Harry. The kind that's been on the books for centuries and most packs just ignore because it's barbaric. But Cascade Mountain still enforces it. That's insane. That's werewolf politics. I sat on the bed, exhaustion hitting like a wave. My legs wouldn't hold me anymore. Garrett's been planning this for 5 years. He knew eventually I'd either mate with someone or try to have children. Either way, he'd have leverage. He let me run. Let me hide. Let me think I was safe. Because he knew biology would give him exactly what he needed. Harry's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, face darkening like storm clouds gathering. Daphne. Garrett just filed formal paperwork with the council. They're scheduling a hearing for next week. Next week? That's faster than normal. He probably has council connections. Money. Influence. Harry tossed his phone onto the dresser hard enough that I heard the case crack. Which means he's not just threatening. He's serious about taking our child. So what do? We fight. Harry, you can't go to war with the Werewolf Council. Watch me. His alpha dominance flared, filling the room like physical pressure. Pack magic so thick I could taste it, copper and ozone and raw power. I'm not letting some backwards pack law steal my family. There has to be a legal precedent, a loophole, something Daphne can find. There isn't. I've looked. Trust me, I've spent 5 years researching every possible escape route. I've read every Werewolf Council ruling from the last century. I've consulted with pack lawyers who laughed and told me the only way out was to never have children or to get formal release from my birth pack, which Garrett would never grant. Then we create new precedent. How? I looked up at him, desperate for answers he couldn't possibly have. He turned to me, and in his eyes I saw the same ruthless determination that had built a media empire from inherited wealth. The focus that made competitors nervous and board members compliant. By proving our bond is real. Not contractual, not convenient, genuinely, biologically real. True mate bonds override pack law. If we can demonstrate to the council that we're true mates, Garrett loses all legal standing. Ancient law says true mates supersede birth pack claims. Hope flickered. Small, fragile, dangerous. Can we do that? There's a test. Blood magic, ancient ritual. It's expensive, complicated, and supposedly infallible. Council elder named Magnolia Cortez performs them. She's been doing true mate tests for 60 years. But if we fail the test, if we're not actually true mates, then Garrett wins. Harry sat beside me, taking my hand. His palm was warm, solid, real. But I don't think we'll fail, Juliet. I felt the bond since the day you agreed to marry me. Maybe before. My wolf recognizes yours in ways I can't explain logically. In ways that have nothing to do with contracts or convenience. And if that's not destiny, I don't know what is. Tears spilled over. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to fall in love with you. You weren't supposed to be my person. This was supposed to be business. Clean, structured, temporary. Life doesn't care about contracts, baby. He pulled me against his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear, solid, grounding, real. We're having a kid together. We're building a life together. That's real, the rest is just paperwork. What if the test says we're wrong? What if we're just really compatible wolves who got lucky? What if this feeling is just proximity and desperation? Then we fight anyway. I'll hire every lawyer in America. I'll buy the damn werewolf council if I have to. I'll move us to a country that doesn't recognize pack law. But I'm not losing you, and I'm not losing our baby. The certainty in his voice made me believe him. Almost. 3 days later, we stood in a Maryland warehouse converted into a werewolf sanctuary, facing a council elder named Magnolia Cortez, a tiny, ancient she-wolf who'd allegedly performed true mate tests for over 60 years. She couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall, with silver hair pulled into a severe bun and eyes that looked like they'd witnessed the birth of continents. You understand the process? She asked, arranging candles in a perfect circle around us. Her hands moved with practiced precision, white candles at the cardinal points, black candles between, silver bowl in the center. The blood magic will reveal your bond, or lack thereof. If you're true mates, the magic will manifest visibly. If you're not. We understand, Harry said. And you understand the consequences? Once tested, the results become official council record. If you fail, Mr. Rames's, you lose all spousal claim to Ms. Candace under pack law. The contract becomes void. Any protection you've offered her disappears. She returns to her birth pack's jurisdiction. We understand, I repeated, my hand tightening around Harry's until my knuckles went white. Magnolia studied us with eyes that had seen centuries. Pack wars, territory disputes, bonds formed and broken. Many couples come here believing they're destined. Most are simply compatible. Chemistry, attraction, good partnership. But true mate bonds are rare for a reason. They're powerful, unbreakable, and often quite inconvenient. They don't care about logic or timing or whether you're ready. Story of our lives, I muttered. She smiled, the first warmth I'd seen from her. Then let's begin. The ritual was simple in execution, complex in meaning, blood from both of us, drawn with a silver blade that stung like ice. Mixed in a silver chalice while Magnolia chanted in a language that predated English. Something ancient, something that made my wolf respond instinctively. Pack magic swirled through the warehouse, ancient, powerful, demanding truth. At first, nothing happened. The blood sat in the chalice, dark and ordinary. My heart sank. Then Harry's blood began to glow. Soft amber gold, like his wolf eyes catching moonlight. Then mine, silver white, like fresh snow under full moon. And then, impossible, beautiful, absolutely terrifying, the two colors merged. Twisted together like DNA helixes. Exploded outward in a burst of light so bright I had to close my eyes, so powerful I felt it in my bones. When I opened them, Magnolia was staring at us with something close to awe. Well, she said quietly, I haven't seen a bond this strong in 40 years. We passed. Harry asked, voice rough. Passed, She laughed, a sound like wind chimes. Young man, you didn't pass. You obliterated the test. This isn't just a true mate bond. This is a fated bond. Soul-level connection written into your DNA before you were born. The kind of destiny that shapes packs, changes territories, writes itself into werewolf history. The kind that happens maybe once in a generation. Relief hit so hard I nearly collapsed. Harry caught me, pulling me against his chest, and I felt his hand shaking. So Garrett loses his claim. I whispered. Garrett has no claim. Never did. You were always meant to be here, with this alpha, building this life. Magnolia handed us official documentation, council sealed, legally binding proof of our bond. Watermarked paper, official stamps, signatures that carried weight. Take this to your hearing. The council will dismiss Garrett's petition immediately. Fated bonds supersede all pack law, ancient law, birth pack claims, everything. This is destiny, children. And destiny doesn't negotiate. We left the warehouse in a daze. Drove back to Connecticut in stunned silence, holding hands across the center console, the bond documentation resting on my lap like a holy relic. Didn't speak until we were safely inside the estate, doors locked, security active, the outside world finally shut out. Then I started laughing. Crying. Some combination of both that probably looked hysterical. We're real, I said, staring at the bond documentation like it might disappear. We're actually, legally, magically real. Not a business arrangement. Not convenient fiction. Real. Did you doubt it? I've doubted everything since the day I left Colorado. Doubted I'd ever be safe. Doubted I deserved happiness. Doubted any alpha would ever choose me over pack politics or tradition or convenience. I kissed him. Long, deep, the kind of kiss that said I love you in ways words couldn't manage. That said thank you and I'm sorry and I choose you too. So what now? I asked when we finally broke apart. Now we go to the council hearing. Present our bond documentation. Watch Garrett's case implode. His smile was pure predatory satisfaction. And then we start planning a nursery, because we're having a baby in 6 months and I haven't bought a single piece of furniture yet. Harry Ramses. Unprepared? Alert the media. The media already thinks I'm a romantic who married his assistant in a whirlwind love story. He grinned. Let's not ruin their illusions with logistical details. For the first time in 5 years, I felt safe. Protected. Home. The hearing was scheduled for Friday morning at the Werewolf Council chambers in D.C. Thursday night, Sloane called. We have a problem, she said, voice tight with tension I'd never heard from her before. Garrett didn't show up at his hotel. Security cameras show him leaving yesterday afternoon. No one's seen him since. Harry's expression went dark. Where is he? Unknown. But boss, his rental car was found abandoned 20 miles from your Connecticut estate. And there were footprints leading toward your property line. Wolf prints. He shifted. My blood turned to ice. He's coming here, I whispered. He wouldn't. Not with a hearing tomorrow. He'd lose everything. He's already lost, I interrupted. The bond test results are public council record. He knows we're real. This isn't about legality anymore, Harry. This is about revenge. This is about an alpha who spent 5 years searching and just found out he never had a chance. The lights went out. All of them. A statewide blackout that plunged us into darkness so complete I couldn't see my own hands in front of my face. Harry's wolf surfaced instantly. Get behind me. Harry. Now, Juliet. Something crashed downstairs. Glass breaking, the huge windows in the foyer, probably. Alarms blaring, security system triggered but useless in the dark. And then, worse than all of that, a howl that echoed through the estate. Garrett's howl. Territorial challenge. Declaration of war. He'd breached Rames's territory. And he was coming for me. Chapter 7. The Showdown. There are moments in life that define you. Moments where you discover exactly what you're made of when everything's on the line. For me, that moment happened in a Connecticut mansion hallway, holding a silver knife I'd grabbed from the kitchen, while my pregnant belly pressed against Harry's back as he faced down the alpha who'd haunted my nightmares for 5 years. Garrett stood at the top of the stairs, half-shifted, claws extended like curved blades, fangs visible and dripping saliva, eyes pure wolf with no humanity left in them. He looked feral, desperate, completely unhinged in a way that made my wolf whimper with recognition. This wasn't the Garrett I'd grown up with. This was what 5 years of obsession had created. "You can't have her," Harry said, voice deadly calm. The kind of calm that comes right before violence. Right before alphas tear each other apart. "She was mine before you ever existed in her world." Garrett's laugh was broken glass scraping across concrete. 5 years I've searched. 5 years I've waited. 5 years of tracking every lead, bribing every informant, checking every pack registry on the East Coast. You think some council document changes destiny? You think blood magic erases what was supposed to be? The council document says we're true mates. Your pack law doesn't supersede that. Pack law says children belong to their birth pack. That baby she's carrying. Garrett's eyes locked on my stomach with hunger that made my skin crawl. That's Cascade Mountain blood. My right to claim. My leverage to bring her home where she belongs. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. And then Garrett lunged. What happened next was pure chaos. Harry met him mid-leap, 2 alphas colliding with enough force to crack the hardwood floor. The sound was deafening, bone hitting bone, claws raking across flesh, growls that shook the chandelier. Sloane and her security team burst through the front door, wolves flooding the hallway in a wave of fur and fangs. Garrett's backup, 3 Cascade Mountain wolves who'd apparently been waiting outside, crashed through windows. Glass exploded inward, glittering like deadly rain. I should have run. Should have hidden, protected my unborn baby. Let the alphas handle alpha business the way pack tradition demanded. Pregnant she-wolves didn't fight. Pregnant she-wolves stayed safe. Instead, I shifted. My wolf exploded outward, silver-white fur, smaller than the male's but faster, angrier, and absolutely done with running. Done with being prey. Done with 5 years of fear and looking over my shoulder and letting Garrett Thornwell control my life from 1,500 miles away. I'd spent 5 years hiding. No more. I hit him from the side while he was focused on Harry, teeth sinking into his shoulder, tasting blood and rage. Claws raking down his ribs, feeling flesh tear beneath my strikes. He howled, throwing me off with enough force that I hit the wall. Pain exploded through my shoulder, but I'd done enough. Given Harry the opening he needed. What followed wasn't a fight. It was an execution. Harry Ramses had spent 15 years as Connecticut Pack Alpha. Had built a reputation for ruthless efficiency and strategic dominance. Had survived challenges from wolves twice his age and won territory through sheer force of will. He didn't fight with rage, didn't let emotion cloud his judgment or make him sloppy. He fought with precision. Every strike calculated. Every move deliberate. Like a chess master who saw 20 moves ahead and knew exactly where his opponent would fall. Garrett didn't stand a chance. Within 30 seconds, he was pinned beneath Harry's wolf, a massive black beast twice Garrett's size, muscle and dominance made flesh. Fangs at his throat. Pack magic pressing down so heavily the other Cascade Mountain wolves submitted instantly, bellies exposed, throats bared in the universal wolf gesture of surrender. Submit, Harry growled, voice barely human. More animal than man. Or die. Your choice. Never. Harry's jaws tightened. Blood welled, dark, hot, spilling across the hardwood floor in patterns that would stain. Garrett's wolf whimpered, the sound pathetic and broken. Stop. I shifted back to human, not caring that I was naked, bleeding from my shoulder, furious enough that modesty felt irrelevant. Don't kill him, Harry. He's not worth it. He tried to take you. And he failed. Because I'm not his. I'm not Cascade Mountain Pack. I'm not some prize to be claimed or property to be retrieved. I stepped closer, making sure Garrett could see me clearly. See the pregnancy he tried to exploit. See the choice I'd made. I'm Juliet Ramses. I'm your wife. I'm carrying your baby. And I'm exactly where I belong. Harry held Garrett down a moment longer, making sure the message was received, making sure every wolf in the room understood the hierarchy. Then he released him with a dismissive shove that sent Garrett sprawling. Garrett collapsed, bleeding and broken, while Sloane's team surrounded the other Cascade wolves. 3 males who looked young, scared, like they'd been dragged into something they didn't fully understand. Garrett's desperation had recruited wolves who couldn't say no. You will leave my territory, Harry said, alpha command resonating through every word. The kind of command that made lesser wolves obey before they even processed the words. You will return to Colorado. You will inform your pack that Juliet is under permanent Rames's protection and any future contact will be considered an act of war. Are we clear? Garrett's eyes met mine one last time. What I saw there wasn't anger anymore, it was defeat. Acceptance. Maybe even, finally, understanding that he'd lost something he'd never actually had. You really love him, he said quietly. Yes. Was there ever a chance? For us? No. I knelt down so we were eye level, ignoring the pain in my shoulder. Because love isn't about ownership, Garrett. It's not about bloodlines or pack politics or traditional arrangements. It's not about forcing someone into a role they never wanted. It's about choice. And I chose Harry, not because he's powerful or wealthy or because he could protect me. I chose him because he gave me the one thing you never did. What's that? Freedom. Sloane's team escorted Garrett and his wolves off Rames's territory. By morning, they were on a flight back to Colorado, and the Werewolf Council had issued formal censure against Cascade Mountain Pack for breaching territorial protocols. Threatened sanctions. Threatened to strip their pack status if they couldn't control their members. The hearing was cancelled. Garrett's claim was dismissed with prejudice. And somewhere in the legal paperwork, there was a restraining order that would last several lifetimes. Any member of Cascade Mountain Pack found within 100 miles of me would face immediate arrest and pack expulsion. I spent 3 hours getting checked out by our pack doctor, a stern woman named Dr. Ishani who delivered 3 generations of Rames's wolves. She confirmed both me and the baby were fine, just shaken. Minor shoulder injury. Some bruising. Nothing that wouldn't heal in days with werewolf metabolism. Harry paced the hallway outside the examination room like a caged animal. I could hear him through the door, footsteps wearing a path in the carpet, occasional growls when someone tried to talk to him, the restless energy of an alpha whose mate had been threatened. When Dr. Ishani finally cleared me, he burst into the room. Don't ever do that again, he said, pulling me against his chest so hard I could barely breathe. Do what? Fight for my family. Shift while pregnant. Charge at a feral alpha. Risk our baby. His voice cracked. Risk yourself. I watched you hit that wall and I thought. Our baby is fine because I protected us. Because I stopped being scared and started being what I should have been 5 years ago, a wolf who doesn't run. Who doesn't hide. Who fights back. His hands cupped my face, gentle now, the alpha dominance replaced by something softer. You terrified me. Good. Now you know how I felt since the day Garrett showed up at our wedding. Since the day I realized my past wasn't going to stay buried. He kissed me, desperate, relieved, possessive in all the ways that made my wolf purr with satisfaction. When we finally broke apart, his eyes were suspiciously bright. I love you, he said hoarsely. Not because of the bond. Not because of the baby. Not because destiny says we're supposed to be together. Because you're the bravest person I've ever met, and I don't know what I did to deserve you. Don't know what cosmic accident put you in my path. You gave me a chance when no one else would. You protected me when I couldn't protect myself. You loved me when I didn't think I was lovable. Tears spilled over. You gave me home, Harry. After 5 years of running, you gave me home. You are home. For me. For our baby. For this entire pack. His hand settled over my stomach where our daughter was growing. We're building something real, Juliet. Not a contract or an arrangement, a life. Our life. However messy, complicated, or inconvenient it gets. However many exes show up trying to steal you back. I can do messy. I know. You married me, didn't you? I laughed despite the tears. Best bad decision I ever made. Second best. The first was walking into my office 4 years ago and refusing to take my garbage. Telling me my tie looked like a tax document. Someone had to. I'm glad it was you. 6 months later, I stood in our Connecticut nursery, walls painted soft yellow like morning sunlight, crib assembled after Harry spent 3 hours arguing with the instructions, tiny wolf harnesses organized by size because Harry couldn't help structuring everything. The room smelled like fresh paint and new furniture and the lavender sachets Celeste had tucked into drawers. I was waiting for labor to start while Harry panicked in 5 different directions at once. Hospital bag. Packed. Has been for 3 weeks. Doctor on speed dial. Yes, Harry. Dr. Ishani's number is programmed into both our phones. Sloane's security team briefed. For the 3rd time, yes. They know the route to the hospital. They know the backup route. They probably know routes I've never heard of. He stopped pacing long enough to pull me close. I'm allowed to be nervous. This is my first kid. Our first kid, I corrected. And she's going to be perfect. She? Definitely she. I can feel it. I pressed his hand against my very pregnant belly where our daughter was currently doing gymnastics. Say hi to your daughter, Alpha Ramses. His eyes went soft, the CEO mask completely gone, replaced by raw emotion. Hi, little wolf. Your mom and I are absolutely going to mess this up, but we'll love you fiercely while we figure it out. That's the worst pep talk I've ever heard. I'm workshopping it. 3 hours later, our daughter made her entrance into the world, screaming loud enough to wake the entire estate, healthy, and already displaying alpha dominance at exactly 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Dr. Ishani laughed and said she'd never seen a newborn with that much attitude. We named her Celeste Ramses, after Harry's mother. Called her Cease for short. And when she opened her eyes for the first time, pure amber gold, just like her father, I knew with absolute certainty that every moment of fear, every sacrifice, every impossible decision had led us exactly where we needed to be. Home. Chapter 8. The Happy Ending. 1 year later, I stood in the Ramses Media Holdings boardroom, Cease balanced on my hip, drooling on my expensive blouse that probably cost more than my first car, while Harry presented quarterly earnings to the board of directors. Revenue is up 17%, he said, clicking through slides with the confidence of someone who'd been born for this role. Who'd spent his entire life preparing to lead. Our streaming platform acquired 3 million new subscribers this quarter, and Dreamland theme park attendance broke records. We're projecting 22% growth next fiscal year. His grandfather would have been proud. More than that, he would have understood. Because Harry had learned what the old man tried to teach him, legacy isn't about money. It's about love. Family. The pack you build and the life you choose to create. It's about the moments between the board meetings, the laughter that fills houses built on old money, the tiny hands that grip your fingers and make billion-dollar empires feel secondary. Any questions? Harry asked the board. Cease chose that moment to sneeze directly into his face, a wet, enthusiastic baby sneeze that left slobber across his cheek. The entire board, Connecticut's most powerful business leaders, people who controlled portfolios worth billions, burst out laughing. I think your daughter has questions about the expense reports, one board member said, grinning. She's very thorough, I added solemnly, adjusting Cease on my hip. Gets it from her father. Also his inability to delegate and his tendency to micromanage. Harry grinned, wiping baby slobber off his custom suit like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like he hadn't spent 38 years being pristine and controlled and untouchable. Meeting adjourned. I have more important business to attend to. Later, at home, I found him in the nursery, Cease asleep in his arms while he rocked her gently and hummed off-key lullabies. The room was dark except for the nightlight, casting soft shadows across walls painted the color of sunshine. He looked exhausted. Happy. More himself than I'd ever seen him. You're really bad at singing, I said from the doorway. She doesn't seem to mind. She's one. She doesn't have taste yet. Give her a few years and she'll start requesting you stop. He looked up, and in his eyes I saw everything we'd built, love that started as convenience, grew into partnership, and became the kind of destiny that reshapes entire lives. That turns cynical billionaires into devoted fathers. That transforms business arrangements into something so real it hurts. I'm glad you answered that job posting 4 years ago, he said quietly. I'm glad you hired the assistant who told you no. Who called your management style aggressively controlling during the interview. Best decision I ever made. Even better than the private jet. Infinitely better than the private jet. He stood, placing Cease carefully in the crib, so gentle, like she was made of glass instead of the sturdy wolf cub she actually was. Even better than every business deal, every acquisition, every perfectly executed strategy. You're the only thing I've ever done that felt right instead of just successful. Tears stung my eyes. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said. I'm workshopping it. He pulled me close, and we stood there watching our daughter sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling, her fingers curled into fists, her face peaceful in a way that made my heart ache. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Giving up running? Settling down with the emotionally constipated billionaire who still schedules romance every day? Liar." I smiled against his chest. "Okay, maybe not every day. Just the days you try to schedule romance like it's a board meeting. Like intimacy requires an agenda and quarterly projections." I scheduled romance once. "Block out Tuesday the 7th of September p.m. for emotional intimacy is not romantic, Harry. It's a business memo. It had bullet points. You included KPIs. But we had a very nice dinner. With an agenda that you emailed me. And meaningful conversation. From bullet points. You literally had conversation topics organized by priority level. That led to excellent physical." I kissed him before he could finish that sentence. Because some things didn't need to be scheduled, planned, or structured. Some things, the important things, just needed to be felt, experienced, allowed to unfold without timelines or expected outcomes. "I love you," I said against his mouth. "Even when you're ridiculous. Even when you schedule spontaneity. Even when you try to optimize things that can't be optimized. I love you too. Even when you're perfect, amazing, the best thing that ever happened to you." I was going to say stubborn, but sure, we'll go with your version. His hands settled on my hips, pulling me closer. "Though you are all those things. Perfect in your imperfection. Amazing in ways I didn't know existed. The best thing that ever happened to me, even though I fought it for months because I'm an idiot who thought love could be controlled." We stood there in our daughter's nursery, surrounded by the life we'd accidentally built, and I realized something. This was the happy ending no one promised me. The life I didn't dare dream about when I was running through Colorado wilderness with nothing but fear and determination. When I thought safety meant staying invisible, staying small, never letting anyone close enough to hurt me. I'd thought I was running away from something. Turned out, I was running toward everything. Toward this man who loved with actions instead of words. Toward this baby who made us both softer. Toward pack and family and belonging I'd convinced myself I didn't deserve. "Thank you," I whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. For choosing me. For building this with me even when it was messy and complicated and nothing like the contract specified. Thank you for picking the lock on my heart," he said softly. "For reminding me that I was still human underneath all the alpha dominance and CEO posturing. For loving me when I'd forgotten how to love myself." So that's the story of how I married my boss for money and accidentally found the love of my life. How a contract became real. How running led me home. How a girl from the Colorado mountains and a billionaire from Connecticut proved that sometimes, the best love stories are the ones you never see coming. The ones that start with desperation and paperwork and end with nurseries and laughter and live so full they overflow. Harry and I are still together, obviously. Still navigating pack politics and board meetings and the absolute chaos of raising a toddler who thinks shifting into wolf form is the solution to nap time. Cease has already mastered the art of puppy eyes that make her father cave on everything. She's going to be terrifying as a teenager. We added 2 more kids after Cease. Twin boys we named River and Stone, who inherited my stubbornness and Harry's inability to take no for an answer. They're 2 now, and our Connecticut estate is absolute bedlam most days. Toys scattered across marble floors. Crayon drawings on walls that probably cost thousands to install. Laughter echoing through rooms built for quiet elegance. I wouldn't change a single second. As for Garrett, last I heard, he'd found his actual true mate, a she-wolf from Montana named Bridget who apparently gives as good as she gets. They're happy. He apologized, formally, about a year after everything went down. Sent a letter acknowledging what he'd done, the pain he'd caused, the years I'd lost because of his obsession. I accepted, because holding grudges takes energy I'd rather spend on my family. Because forgiveness isn't about excusing someone, it's about refusing to let them control your story anymore. And Cascade Mountain Pack? They updated their laws. Modernized their approach to mating bonds and pack claims. Younger wolves pushed for change, demanded autonomy, refused to accept traditions that treated she-wolves like property. Progress happens slowly, but it happens. I like to think my story helped push that change forward. That other wolves won't have to run the way I did. Daphne Chen is Cease's godmother and the twins' favorite person because she sneaks them candy before dinner. Sloane is head of Rames's pack security and has saved my life at least 6 times, though she claims it's closer to 10 if you count the time I almost walked into traffic while texting. Celeste, Harry's mother, my mother-in-law, my unexpected pack lunar mentor, teaches all 3 grandkids how to be strong, stubborn, and unapologetically themselves. How to demand what they deserve. How to never settle for less than extraordinary. It's messy. It's complicated. It's everything I never knew I wanted. And it started because a desperate alpha said I need a wife tomorrow and a scared she-wolf said you're not my type. Turns out, we were exactly each other's type. We just needed destiny to point it out. Oh, and one more thing. That contract Harry and I signed? The one that started this whole mess? We framed it. Hung it in our bedroom as a reminder that sometimes, the best things in life start with terrible ideas, questionable decisions, and the willingness to take a chance on the impossible. Also, Harry likes to point at it during arguments and yells Section 12 says you have to agree with me. Section 12 says no such thing. But I let him win occasionally. Because that's what you do when you love someone. Even when they're ridiculous. Especially when they're yours. If this story touched your heart, if Juliet and Harry's journey reminded you that love shows up in unexpected places, that running doesn't mean failing, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself, then I have one request. Subscribe to Gracie Werewolf Storybank. Not for me. For you. Because stories like this, stories about strong women who refuse to be victims, complicated alphas who learn that control isn't the same as connection, found family that matters more than bloodlines, and love that refuses to follow the rules, these stories matter. They remind us that happy endings are possible even when the beginning is messy. That transformation is real. That we're all capable of becoming more than our worst moments. Drop a comment below. Tell me what resonated with you. Tell me if your team contracts are romantic or team burn all the paperwork. Tell me where you're listening from, Maryland, Connecticut, Colorado, Montana, or anywhere else in this big, beautiful world. Tell me if you've ever had to run from something, if you've ever found home in unexpected places, if you've ever loved someone who taught you that you were worth choosing. Your comments, likes, shares, they tell YouTube that supernatural romance deserves space. That werewolf stories aren't just entertainment, they're escapism, comfort, hope. They're mirrors showing us what's possible when we're brave enough to believe in second chances. So if you're still here, still listening, still believing in impossible love stories, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Now go forth and find your own Harry Rameses. Or Juliet Candice. Or whatever version of love makes your wolf howl with joy. Whatever version of home makes you feel safe enough to stop running. You deserve it. You've always deserved it.